Hi, my name is Naquita Nicole Murphy, and I am presenting an environmental psychology proposal for my environmental psychology class at Eastern New Mexico, and the title of it is The Environmental Harm of Black Silence in Psychology Curriculum, a civic proposal for inclusive representation, healing, and students' quality of life at Eastern New Mexico University. This proposal, including the study design and research questions, is my original work and may not be distributed, replicated, or presented in any form without the author's written consent. Writing this paper for an assignment does not give consent to say it is okay to use my work. I am also presenting this proposal to the Board of Regents of Eastern New Mexico University. This proposal is addressed to the Board of Regents at Eastern New Mexico University, urging action based on empirical data to support curricular change that foster a more inclusive and psychological, healthy educational environment by improving students' beliefs and attitudes about representation, inclusions, and academic identity. In both cognitive psychology and environmental psychology class at Eastern New Mexico University, a recurring and harmful pattern has emerged, one that directly contradicts the goal of environmental psychology. As defined by our textbook, environmental psychology seeks to understand and improve the relationships between individuals in their physical, social, and symbolic environments. The exclusion of Black psychologists, culturally grounded theories, and diverse voices from the psychology curriculum contributes to psychological stress, identity fragmentation, and disengagement. When courses content excludes Black perspective, it becomes an environmental stressor, especially harmful for underserved students whose belief about self-worth, inclusion, and academic safety are impacted. In chapter 3 and 32, this is where they talk about environmental stressors, including those ties to culture, identity, places, and how they can negatively impact psychological well-being, especially in underserved populations. When psychology classrooms fail to include Black voices, they distort educational reality, reinforce systematic biases, and undermine students' identity development, particularly for Black students. This issue does not only affect Black students. In the book, Why All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria, explains that when white students are not exposed to racially inclusive content, they often experience emotion such as guilt, shame, and discomfort. Without structured engagement, these emotional reactions interfere with learning and reinforce biases. Also, in Silence as a Weapon, Challenges of a Black Professor Teaching White Students describe how white students resist to Black intellectual authority, upholds white comfort over educational equality. These emotional and psychological disruptions affect the classroom environment for everyone. The legacy of historical trauma further compounds this environmental harm. Therefore, I have listened to Dr. Joy DeGruy. This is her right here on the screen. I really like what she developed for psychological theory, and I really appreciate it, and I felt heard. I have never heard of anything like this or even known to be anything like this until I started doing my own research, if that makes sense. Dr. Joy DeGruy states that Black Americans continue to carry trauma symptoms, including hypervigilance, internalized oppression, and identity fragment due to their repeated denial of truth, justice, and representation in the American system. These psychological effects do not remain internal. They influence students' beliefs about their values in academic spaces and shape their attitudes towards institutions that exclude their history and identity. In an academic context, when Black students are expected to engage with psychology without ever seeing themselves reflected in its foundational voices, the environment becomes not only alienated, but psychologically rewounding. Academic failure and weaponized silence. In Ladson-Billings' 1995 work, she emphasized that culturally relevant pedagogy is not about superficial inclusion, but redefining who gets to be seen as a knower. In her later work, she calls out the weaponized silence of white students who resist Black authorities in classrooms. This silence functions as an environmental weapon, maintaining comfort for some while harming the learning and psychological safety of others. This dynamic affects both belief and attitudes. Black students internalize a sense of exclusion and feel invisible, while white students may subconsciously absorb the message that Black scholarship lacks legitimacy. So Tatum's work in 1997 basically says that if race-related content is excluded from college courses, often generate emotional responses in students that range from guilt and shame to anger and despair. If it's not addressed immediately, these emotions can cause resistance, interfering with the cognitive understanding and mastery of the material. Tatum's findings support the urgent need for culturally grounded content that affirms Black students and fosters psychological safety and impact for all students in psychology classrooms. Okay, this right here is the multi-dimensional models of racial identity. This breaks down like how racial identity is established, how it's not just one simple thing, it's belonging to everywhere. Sellers et al. 1998 argues that a strong and affirmed racial identity is essential for mental health and social functioning. The absence of culturally affirming material in psychology degrades this process. When students do not see themselves reflected in what they are studying, they may withdraw, become emotionally distressed, or question their belonging. This affects academic beliefs about whose knowledge matters, who gets to be called a psychologist, and what counts as valid science inquiry. Even non-Black students are harmed by this exclusion because it deprives them of a complete and accurate understanding of human behavior. This proposal challenges Eastern New Mexico University to examine its own classrooms. So some of the questions that I really had when even thinking about like even doing research and finding like the things how I wanted to put together with my study, some of the questions that I didn't see answered when it came to environmental psychology is, does hearing a Black psychologist theory and culturally grounded perspective enhance white students' understanding of human behavior? Are white students truly being educated, or are they receiving a psychological incomplete view of the world? And these are questions that environmental psychology has not yet fully confronted. Addressing them requires intentional design, not passive diversity statements. Study overview. This study investigates how presenters' race and educational material impact students' beliefs and attitude about inclusion, identity, and quality of life in academic settings. According to our textbook, Environmental Psychology, the intro, it emphasized that quality of life includes physical conditions and psychological well-being, social connections, and emotional safety. When applied to university environments, quality of life reflects how supported, represented, and engaged students feel in their educational spaces. If psychology seeks to develop an accurate, inclusive understanding of human behavior, it must actively include Black scholars in their history of their communities, traumas, and intellectual contributions. So some of the things that these research questions are going to answer is, how does viewing Black environmental psychologists influence students' emotional engagement, sense of identity, and academic attitudes? Do Black students report increased psychological safety and belonging when exposed to inclusive content? Do white students benefit from increased exposure to Black perspectives? But in overall, the study assesses the emotional and academic effects of representation within the environmental psychology classroom by comparing responses from students exposed to inclusive versus non-inclusive course material. So this right here is my predictions. This study, just a reminder, the study explores how the racial identity of the presenters/speakers in environmental psychology education materials affect students' attitudes and beliefs about safety, inclusion, engagement, and overall quality of life in an academic space. My hypothesis is participants exposed to Black or mixed presenters will report stronger emotional connections and increased appreciation for inclusive scholarship. Black participants will feel more seen, valued, and secure in the Black presenter condition. White participants may report initial discomfort but develop more inclusive beliefs and positive academic attitudes over time. So the next section is the methods section. The study will include approximately 90 psychology students ages from 18 to 45, all going to Eastern New Mexico University. And we will get them from maybe an intro psychology class, like general psychology courses. The age reflects the actual students that I do know that's in the psychology department. Their age typically begins from anywhere from 18 to and somewhere in their late 30s and early 40s. And I wanted to make sure that everybody was included when it came to age. So that's the reason why I have a big age gap, because I know there are a lot of people in psychology department that are not just 18, they're in their 30s or they're in their 40s. So I wanted to make sure everybody can actually participate and take this study. I also wanted to make sure that both online and in-person students will have the option to participate. No matter what your background is or how you identify, you can definitely participate in this study. Students will participate voluntarily and confidentially. Informed consents will be obtained, and participants will receive extra credit or be entered into a gift card drawing. Psychology students were chosen because we are learning to think critically, and this can be very impactful for future professional practices. The study will use 3 educational videos aligned with core environmental psychology topics such as environmental stress, human nature interactions, and restorative justice. The video set will vary only in the racial identity of the presenter/speaker. So we have a Black speaker, a white speaker, or it will be a Black and white speaker, where you might have to watch one video that's Black and one video that's white on that day. So right here we have an example of some Black presenters or speakers that these videos could be used in a study. I really like the Black environmental justice video and also the environmental racism. It really changed my life and view about environmental psychology, where the videos that were presented in class, I really couldn't follow or understand where they were coming from, and these videos help. But these videos you will not hear from a teacher or professor at Eastern New Mexico. These are YouTube videos, TED Talks that are either Black or white speakers or presenters. So some of the equipment that can be used it will include a desktop computers, laptops, tablets, such as iPads, Chromebooks, smartphones, headphones, projectors, and online learning management systems. Participants may complete sessions online or in person using any internet connected device that allows video streaming and survey submissions. So the videos that will be selected could be any of those four or any other videos that we might find. But each video, we are going to try our best to match it up with length, topic, tone of control for any variables, even down to emotional tone and speaker delivery style. So if the selected video for a given week is 56 minutes, all groups will view a 56-minute video that week. This rotation ensures that everybody is being exposed to the same conditions at the same time. So participants will be randomly assigned to one of the three groups. Group A, Black presenters video, Group B, white presenter video, and Group C, mixed presenters, which will feature a Black and white presenter. Each group will watch one video per week for 3 weeks, rotating video sets to prevent sequence bias. Each rotation is balanced for video length and according to the topic, what we're talking about. So environmental justice one day, or just talking about pollution, and it'll be a speaker that will be talking about each topic. So this right here is an example of how the weeks can be set up, which I find it very beneficial. Each group A will experience every condition, Group B will experience every condition, and Group C will. So the presenter race is the only variable that's manipulated. So after they watched the video, the students, I came up with a Likert scale where this survey assessing emotional engagement, identity, and educational values, where they would answer 1 through 5, 1 being strongly negative and 5 being strongly positive. A brief reflection essay about how the material made them feel and whether they saw themselves represented. I also wanted to make sure that they were actually watching the videos, not just like, and so it's an open-ended prompt about what they liked or disliked to ensure active engagement and attention. So just to make sure that people are actually paying attention. In week 4, participants will complete a follow-up survey assessing their preferred learning style, sense of academic belongings, and beliefs about whose voices should be represented in psychology. So some of the questions are here, like which video did they connect with the most and why? That's very important to say, like, hey, like I really learned a lot from this video, or I prefer this video. Like that's important. Also, like, do they want this class to be taught in person or online? And I think the 4th question on here is very important because this actually goes into like some students saying like, yes, I prefer maybe a Black teacher to teach this because they have a different perspective by watching the videos, or I might prefer a white teacher to teach this, and just, or a person of color, just to see where students lie at with that. And did they feel the content improve their academic quality of life? That question is very important. How the surveys will be analyzed. Quantitative data will be ANOVA to test between group differences. Qualitative data will be used like you're using themes, and it's going to be coded by 2 independent raters with inter-rater reliability tests using Cohen-Kappa. So here I have some operational definitions. One is emotional engagement, identity, affirmation, and perceived safety, and quality of life. So just to basically break this down, like the beliefs, internalized judgments about the validity of Black scholars and inclusive. Attitudes, emotional or cognitive evaluations about academic safety, value and representation. Identity, affirmation, feels seen or valid by presenter's identity. and also the quality of life. Students perceive academic well-being, including representation, psychological safety, and social belonging within the educational setting. So, as a student here at Eastern New Mexico University, I want to give my personal experience of why I even thought that this was an issue to bring up. As a student in this course, I noticed the absence of Black voices in assigned videos. It wasn't until chapter 32 of this textbook that Black people were mentioned, and even then, only in the context of poverty and environmental degradation. That experience was emotionally painful. I cried for 2 days. It made me question whether Black excellence, resilience, and intellectual contributions were invisible to the very discipline I was studying. This is not just a personal feeling, it is measurable. If I were a participant in my own study, these emotions and cognitive reactions would be captured in the survey data. My beliefs about academic values, inclusions, and identity were impacted by the structure of the curriculum. This paper was not just an assignment, it is my healing. And I just want to say, after this chapter, I really liked this book in the beginning, but when I got to chapter 32, which I believe it's 35 chapters, I discredit everything that they said. It impacted me in a way where I was really hurt emotionally, physically. It caused me a lot of psychological harm. I was more hurt that my teacher didn't take his time out to, if he did read the book, if he didn't take his time out to even email me or even say during one of his videos, hey, chapter 32 is a little insensitive to Black people. I know they don't mention you nowhere else in the book, and they always mention Black people and poverty, slums, and different things like that, and low and middle income. And so I'm sorry, and maybe this information could have been very beneficial to the point where he didn't test me on this, to make me test about something that really harmed me and traumatized me, is insensitive to my needs as a student here at Eastern New Mexico I have experienced. And I really am hurt, truthfully, that I even had to sit through that and read that. So I would hope that the next students that take this class would not have to go through what I did to only see Black people being mentioned in the whole entire book, and where it's mentioned degrading them. And I'm just wondering to myself, have they been to Atlanta, Georgia? Have they been to South Carolina, Charleston, where in the streets they show how white people used to do Black people, where they have statues and how they treasure their environment? I'm really concerned about that. And it's sickening. It was disheartening, it's distasteful, and I'm forever traumatized by being in this class and not seeing me being representative. But more importantly, my teacher never forewarned me that this chapter, I know that when I did attend Cincinnati State, our teacher said when she was presenting a psychology book, she said, I don't agree with some of the stuff in here. Some of the stuff is very biased towards Black people. We will not be going over that. Not one time did this teacher think that they was to actually say, you know what, this might be harmful to Black people reading this, so I think I might leave it out. So I really, 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 really would have wished that he did that. So in conclusion, this research argues that inclusive curriculum improves students' beliefs about representation, enhances academic attitudes, and fosters psychological safety. These findings will be presented to Eastern New Mexico University Board of Regents with the goal of implementing long-term curricular reform. The psychology department cannot continue to ignore environmental harm happening in its own classrooms. By centering identity, healing, and truth, this proposal charts a path forward for inclusive excellence and equality, not just for Black students, but for everyone. By affirming identities and expanding worldviews, this proposal offers more than a study. It offers a pathway to healing, truth-telling, in a psychological, healthy academic future for all Eastern New Mexico University students by positively shaping their attitudes and beliefs. Any comments or concerns, please reach me at the email right here. This is my school email address. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time, for listening to me. And don't just listen to me as a person of color, but listen to me as a student and telling you my experience of why I'm so passionate about this environmental change. And here's my reference section of all the work that I use, including the videos. And thank you. You have a great day. God bless.